What's up guys, welcome to today's video. We are going to be going over the prompt of sunflower for my 1 a day in May henna challenge. So if you're unfamiliar, please visit my Instagram and it'll have all the information that you need in order to follow along. So again, like I mentioned, today's prompt is sunflowers, and so here I'm going to be doing 3 different styles. This first one is a more realistic looking one. So you can kind of see how I started with one small circle and with a larger circle around it, and now I'm just doing some shading on the outside as well as on the inside, and then I'm going to be going in on the inside with very subtle and light humps, or what I like to call as scallops, and I just follow along the entire length of the circle that we've created, and this will create that little kind of look where the seeds grow out of the sunflower. They create those little pockets, and so that's the look that we're trying to create. So now I'm just creating some contrast though, and before I start working on the petals. One thing to note with sunflowers, if you ever looked at a photo of them, you'll notice that they are kind of staggered. The petals aren't exactly right next to each other, and there's quite a few layers. So I'm creating the first layer initially, and then I'll go in behind and work on that second layer. So one thing you want to do when you're making more realistic type of sunflowers is you want to try to make each petal just a little bit different. So some will be small, some will be big, some will be longer and shorter, and vice versa. Just make them all a little bit more unique. And then I'm going in, as you can see here, with some light strokes to create some shading. Next, we're going to be creating that second layer, and again, they're a little bit more staggered. They're not exactly perfectly right in the center, so just keep note of that if you want to try to make your sunflower look a little bit more realistic. And again, we'll go in with some simple shading all the way around. Now we're gonna go in and do some leaves. So another thing you'll notice if you look at sunflowers, their leaves are quite wide and they come to a very tapered point. So that's kind of what I tried to do. And again, we're gonna create the leaves to have different shapes, and because they're underneath the flower, just imagine the light is coming from up top. So we're creating some shading right underneath those layer of petals. This creates some dimension when you're working, and also just make sure to add a little vein in there, since the leaves usually have that center vein, and keep that part a little bit empty. And because this is still more of a henna kind of design, I'm going in with some more aesthetic touches, creating a little flower bud with some more leaves, but these ones are a little bit different. Kind of consider it kind of like making a little bouquet. And again, making those really big leaves. And then I'm going to create more of a vine here that's a little bit more henna style. Now I'm going to contrast with some filled in little leaves here, since I felt like a lot of the leaves I'm going to be making have more of a lighter feel to them. So I wanted to make sure to contrast with some thickness too. So again, creating that center vein and then working from the outside of the leaf and working downwards towards the base of it. And here you can kind of see how I hold my cone, Because I usually work with larger cones, I usually fold a good part of it halfway down like this, and you can kind of see how it's nestled in the palm of my hand, and I'm actually using the base of my thumb to create the pressure in which the henna flows from, and then I actually guide with my fingers, so you can kind of see a little bit better here. We're moving on to the second sunflower, which is going to be from the perspective a little bit more from the side. So that's why I've done the center like this. And you'll notice when I work down, when I make the petals, I'm actually creating more of a rounded base there to give the look of the flower a little bit more perspective, as if you are looking at it from the side. So again, creating that staggered look and making sure each petal is unique in its own right. And then working in that second layer. Again, I'm guiding with my fingers there while making pressure with the base of my hand. And I decided to create a little bit darker leaves from the side there. And just imagine that the sun is coming from the top left. That's why on the left-hand side, I've created more darkness. So it gives that added dimension, that added 3D kind of feel to your henna flower. So after you've created the shading, I kind of decided that I wanted to create a little bit more of a darker look on the outside just to make it pop a little bit more. So I'm kind of filling it in all the way around. Now moving on, we're going to be doing a stem for this one. So again, you can kind of see now it's starting to develop that shape where the flower is a little bit more from the side. And again, we're making the leaves having a very wide base and then a very pointy tip. And then again, creating the vein and then making sure that you have those little markings on the inside. And I just like to thicken the vein a little bit because that makes the leaf a little bit more contrasted. So I decided that it was a little bit too plain, so I decided to add some little henna style vines just to give it some more character. So now I'm moving on to this last and third style, which I'm trying to make more henna style, as you can say. The first two, I went a little bit more realistic, but with these ones, you can see I'm using this hashing netting type of motif. And this is something that's used a lot in a lot of henna designs, but still adding a little bit of shading. But as you'll notice next, I'm actually going to be creating each petal as perfectly the same size and shape as I can, and that's a very henna flower style, you could say, when you make each petal the same size and equidistant from the center. And I'm doing the same thing with that second layer of petals, just making sure that it is totally centered as much as possible. Then I'm going in with a tapered line, a much thicker one first, and then I'm going to be adding some shading. And if you've watched any of my videos, you'll notice that I do this kind of style in all of my henna flowers pretty much every time. So you can kind of see how it's a little bit less realistic, but it still gives that subtle feel of being a sunflower. Now I'm going to be adding those henna swirls, you could say, and little vines. And I'm going to be working 4 sides, doing it just a little bit different each one. So you could do the same swirl motif each time, but I decided to give it a little bit more character and do something a little different on all 4 sides. And I don't know if you noticed, but I totally forgot to fill 2 petals, and I didn't notice until I was done filming. So hopefully it's not too noticeable, but let me know if you noticed it or not. But yeah, so moving on to some more henna style leaves now. So they're a little bit less sunflower looking and more kind of paisley shaped. But still the same idea of creating a vein and then working down those little teardrops, working down towards the base. Now after this leaf, I'm going to add just a few finishing touches, and that will complete this third sunflower design. So I hope you found this video helpful. I really hope that you can join in on the henna challenge. Tomorrow's prompt is elephants, and I'm actually super excited about that. So I hope you can join in, tag on your social media, hashtag #OneADayInMay, so that we can all see each other's work. So if you enjoyed this video, I'll see you next time.